Cheryl, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate your time. Hey, tell me about your business. Tell me where you guys are located. Give me your website address, all your social media accounts.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm Cheryl Bailey with Yellow Umbrella Events, and I own and operate the company with my husband, and we're destination wedding travel planners to Mexico. We specialize in destination weddings. We actually do a little bit of incentive travel as well for our corporate groups, but primarily we do destination wedding groups that want to go to Mexico, which are usually going to be headed towards Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Cabo, Puerto Vallarta, kind of the tourist typical destinations.
Yeah.
I mean, would I love to take people other places? Yes, because Mexico is amazing. But most people are going to tend to go to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. And as I mentioned, I operate this business with my husband, Shay. We're a husband and wife team, and we have a couple other people on our team as well. We are based out of Texas, but we spend a lot of time in Playa del Carmen. I would say we are probably, say, in town, so to speak, about 3 months out of the year until we officially move to Mexico, which is looking like that might happen within the next, year or two.
Nice.
Until we kind of make that move. And then even then, I think we'll be half and half, 6 months on, 6 months off, or 3 and 3. Let's see, our social media channels, where you can find us on Instagram primarily and Facebook under Yellow Umbrella Events, one word. So.
And your website is yellowumbrellaevents.com?
Yes, yellowumbrellaevents.com. Thank you. I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, for sure. So when people do destination weddings to Mexico, are they always doing like all-inclusive type things, or is it, or are there opportunities to like not do all-inclusive? Or is that what they want?
Most of the time, people want to do an all-inclusive because it's just easier. There are definitely opportunities to go to something other than an all-inclusive, but typically people that are having a destination wedding want that all-inclusive experience because it's one price for their guests. It includes food and beverage, all kinds of activities, everything they could possibly need, sometimes even transportation. So they're not having to, make a lot of plans for their guests. Their guests are kind of taken care of once they're there. So typically people that have a destination wedding are wanting an all-inclusive for the most part.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds better to me, like everything's included, right? So you don't have to like deal with all the other little stuff, but I don't know. I'm sure there's some couples that want certain things, depending, right?
Yeah, I mean, an all-inclusive is a lot of fun. I mean, you really can't go wrong with an all-inclusive, as opposed to having what we call an EP, which is called the European plan, like a standard hotel that doesn't have anything included except for the room. And then you have to, kind of figure out where your guest's going to eat and what are they going to do. And, the other part of this is that a lot of guests have not traveled internationally. We tend to work with couples that are comfortable traveling, but their guests, for the most part, have never left the U.S. So anytime, anyone leaves the U.S., they're like concerned, like, can I walk outside the hotel? Is it safe? I'm like, yes, it's very safe, actually, particularly compared to a lot of places in the U.S. But so they want to know that, everything's kind of confined, so to speak, and in one place, so that people don't have to leave the resort complex and they feel, more comfortable and secure.
Cool. That's great. What are some of the like common events or common like extra things that people typically do when, because it's not just the wedding, right? You're going down probably for a couple days, right? And then
3 or 4.
And then you have, the wedding, obviously, right? Maybe rehearsal and some partying and things like that. But what are the things that people are doing outside of that are the fun, extra fun stuff that you see?
So a lot of our couples will host some kind of welcome party or, rehearsal dinner, a little more traditional.
Yeah.
And they are doing things like catamarans or like private cruises. If they're in the Cancun or Playa del Carmen area, they can go to a place called Xochimilco where they can take a gondola cruise for the evening. I call it a booze cruise on a gondola because that's really what it is.
Nice.
And so they're wanting guests to have this kind of experience where they all can do things together. Sometimes they're doing other excursions and activities. They might go to Chichen Itza, or one of the cool things to do in Cabo is to rent like 4-wheelers and go riding through the desert. So people are tending towards doing, of course, things that are included at the resort, but then they might have another activity where the whole group participates in some kind of, fun excursion or experience for sure.
Mhm. Do you feel like it's more about how the experience goes, like at these locations? Like
Yeah.
people are like, okay, what can we pack in experience wise 4 days, right?
Yeah, and most destination weddings, particularly to Mexico, since it's for most people a short trip, but most of the weddings, their guests are only going to stay 3 to 4 nights. So I usually tend to warn our couples not to pack in a ton of activities into their wedding weekend, because this is also their guest vacation as well.
Yeah.
For the most part, guests are paying their way to come to this event. So they're paying for their flight and their transportation, hotel. So they kind of want to enjoy their vacation. Yes, of course, they want to go to the couple's wedding, but not to say they don't want it to monopolize their vacation, but it's really how it is.
Yeah.
They want to spend that one day, really celebrating the couple and maybe one other side event, but the rest of the time there, they really want to do their own thing.
Yeah.
So we try to kind of guide our couples into not necessarily overly scheduling their guests, because that tends to backfire and they don't really have as much engagement from the guests. So that's a good piece of advice I would give people is, plan the wedding day activities and maybe one other event, a welcome party, a brunch the next day, something like that. But then, let your guests have fun, leave them alone.
Yeah.
There's so much to do, especially if they're not normally a traveler.
Now, are you guys also helping book the guests travel and things like that as
Yes.
well? And so that's the opportunity, right? Like they're asking you, what else can we do?
Yeah.
And you guys are giving, okay, great. That's awesome.
Yeah, we book all of their travel for all of their guests. So kind of when people start working with us and we help them find, of course, a great resort venue, we help set up a room block for their guests. We'll help the couple book their room, activities, things like that. And then all of their guests will be individually booked as well. So some of their guests might stay, come earlier. Again, this could be their whole vacation. So instead of 3 days, they might stay 7. So some people will come earlier, some people will stay later. People want to do other activities and do different excursions. So we're also working independently with each of the guests to make for sure they, do book within the room block that the couple set up, which is sometimes tied to things like additional perks the hotel might offer them. So it's unlike a local wedding where you might hire a planner to help you with just yourself and the day's activities. A destination travel planner will not only help you with the day's activities typically, but then help every single one of your guests. So it's a much greater responsibility, so to speak, than just booking a local room block and hoping people,
Yeah, right. Because typically you don't handle any of those things with the other guests locally, right? I mean, it's just
exactly,
they're on their own. How do as a couple, how do I find you outside of like looking at your website? I mean, how do you guys usually get most of your couples? Are they through referrals, through people you know? Do they find you online?
So kind of a combination of those. A lot of people do find us online with, a simple Google search looking for a destination wedding planner. There are particular resorts that we do a lot of groups with, and so they might find us connected to the resort in some way. A lot of our business is from referral. Oddly enough, Facebook groups. We get a lot of referrals from people who post about us on Facebook groups, and we're very active in Facebook groups for the different resorts. Even though we don't particularly, represent just one resort, my husband and I and our company is completely independent. There are particular resorts that just make sense for more for wedding groups than others.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So we tend to work more in certain resorts than others, and it's easier for us to give that advice towards that particular resort. So we do have a lot more referrals within resorts to us by like past couples and people that have attended a wedding and know that we have them.
So I contact you. I'm interested in, having destination wedding in Mexico. Walk me through the process as someone who's looking to have a destination wedding.
Gotcha. So typically people will contact us, and one of the most normal questions we get is, what's the best resort? And whereas I have a personal opinion about what are the best resorts for different things, but usually we tell people like, hey, that's a great question. But first we need to determine like what you are personally looking for your wedding, what you want your ceremony to look like, your reception to look like. And then once we have kind of established that wedding portion, which is why you're going, now we need to look at what you want your guests to experience. What are you wanting to have lots of group activities? Are you wanting more of a relaxing situation, or do you want tons of activities? So we want to look at not only just the wedding portion of it, but the guest portion as well. And then once we've kind of talked through all of those things, then I can tell you like, okay, here's the best resort for that. Because is there one like best resort? I'm sure that, you know, there are all kinds of review sites and all kinds of awards that are given out for sure. That's like technically the best rated
Yeah.
resort. But if it doesn't match what the couple is looking for the experience they want to provide to their guests, then it's not the best resort for them. So when someone contacts us, those are things that we're going to kind of talk about is what they want their ceremony and reception to look like, what they are expecting in a resort. So it's really like 2 pages of questions that I go through of asking.
Yeah, gotcha.
I know it sounds like a lot, but once you have really gone through that process, like I'll be able to tell you, oh, okay, here is the one, or maybe here are the 2 or 3 resorts that'll fit what you're looking for. And we've been doing this long enough that I can truly nail down like, okay, you're going to decide between this and this because, you know, once we've gone through all the criteria, this is really it. Like you're not going to be happy anywhere else. So,
Right.
so we start by really narrowing down a resort option. And then from that point, then we'll of course contact the resorts for them, see if their wedding date is even available, help them secure the wedding date with the resort, help set up a room block for their guests. With our company, we actually set up a one-page kind of website for the couple so they can give to all their guests that talks about all the things they can experience at the resorts, how much the rooms are, all of the travel side of things. So it's really comprehensive.
Oh,
And
nice.
then we are with them from that point on all the way through the wedding day until travel is complete. So they're kind of like, they have us from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Do you get people that contact you and say, hey, I'm interested in going to Mexico, but I'm not sure where? Or
Yeah.
do they contact you like, hey, I know I want to go to Cabo?
Both. Some people
Okay.
contact us and are like, I love Cabo, or I love Playa del Carmen, or, you know, I've always wanted to go to Puerto Vallarta, or wherever they want to go. So some people kind of have an idea. And then some people contact us and say, you know, I'm thinking Mexico. Here are the things I'm looking for. What makes the most sense? The other thing we're going to look at is where are most of their guests coming from? Because
Yeah.
we want to see like, how easy is it? Like you guys might all be coming from Texas maybe, or Florida, but you know, most of your guests are coming from Kansas. And
Yeah.
so we're like, what are the flights like out of, you know, Kansas to get all of your guests to your wedding? So depending upon where they're coming from and some other criteria will make a difference in kind of where we kind of point them towards on where they'll land.
Yeah, sure. So what would be your advice to couples if they're looking for a destination wedding, maybe to go out to Mexico or anywhere in the world, really, outside of the US? What are your recommendations for them to be thinking about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I will say, and this may not have really anything to do about the planning side of things, but I would say from a personal perspective, be on the same page. You can't have 2 people that are getting married and one wants one thing and one wants something completely different. Really being on the same page, which will help you in wedding planning and in life and in marriage,
Yeah, yeah,
is really, really important. And it sounds like such a silly thing to say, but we get a surprising amount of people where one of the couple clearly wants one particular thing, and then the other person in the couple wants something clearly different. And neither one of them are happy making any compromises.
uh,
Or it might be that there are parents involved as well, and there's a lot of, you know, family input, but the couple needs to be on the same page. So super, super important. And when I say on the same page, you have to be on the same page about what you want for your wedding day, your ceremony, your experience, and also
yeah,
what you're going to spend. Super, super important is that a lot of people are not on the same page on what they're going to spend. So I would say good advice to start is first talk to each other and make for sure that both of you are 100% on board with a destination wedding and kind of, you know, what your plans are. Because if you're not talking to each other, if you're not on the same page, the whole process is not going to be fun. And it can be a really fun process, but not unless you're on the same page. So
yeah.
I would say that's my like number one, you know,
Be on the same page.
non-businessy
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
advice is be on the same page.
yeah. So what about for like guests that are attending a destination wedding? Like what would your advice be for them?
So super important that couples really understand how much their guests can afford to pay. And most wedding groups, you're going to have couples that have friends that can pay, you know, 4 seasons money.
Yeah,
And then you're going to have guests that can pay like Super 8 motel money. So you're going to have to
Yeah.
kind of take the, the middle ground there of like maybe half your guests can truly afford this high-end 5-star luxury experience, but maybe the other half cannot afford that. So from the guest side of things, like really considering what is realistic for the people that are attending from your, family members and, friends. You don't want anyone to feel like they're pressured into attending your destination wedding. And it's seems kind of odd thing to say, but one of the perks of a destination wedding
Yeah.
is that you can kind of narrow down that guest count
Yeah. Yeah.
to like specific people. But so you never want anyone to really feel pressured to, to spend, money they don't have, so to speak, or really go into debt to attend your wedding. So just kind of really thinking through what is realistic for your guests to spend. And a destination wedding travel planner can absolutely help you with that. I would say the average per person per night, all-inclusive hotel for a wedding is going to be somewhere between $250 a person to about $350-ish a person.
Yeah.
And that's going to be kind of that middle ground. So just going into it, understanding what your guests are truly able to spend and if they're truly able to attend your destination wedding.
And that includes everything really, right? Like, so all your food and stuff is included in that price typically? You just have to pay for air travel, transportation kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so typically an all-inclusive is going to include their room, their food, their drinks, and some typically non-motorized water sports, activities, entertainment, things that are happening within the resort.
Nice.
Some all-inclusive resorts will also include the transportation to and from the airport. Some do not. And then, of course, the only other expense for your guest when you're working with the all-inclusive is going to be their airfare, getting to the destination.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Good advice. Let's switch gears a little bit, talk about business side.
Okay.
So for you as a business owner, right, not given what's happening today with COVID, but let's talk about like what has been working well for you guys as a business.
Okay. Really good question from the business side of things. I would say if you are in this business and are a destination travel planner, having systems that are trackable and are consistent is extremely important. So we have, my husband and I have quite a process, and there's many, many steps. And we're always looking for like, how can we adjust these steps? But from the business side of things, like I know when someone has emailed, I know when they've made a payment, I know, when someone's made a request for something, or, all kinds of details that you wouldn't think you would normally need to know. You will need to know all of those details if you're interested in being a destination travel planner, because you are managing, typically 40 to 50 people in every wedding group, sometimes 100 to 200 people.
Yeah.
If you're in incentive travel, you could be managing 300 or more people, and you need to know every detail about that person's experience. So you're going to need to know every person's flight, when they're arriving, when they're departing, if they've got their transportation, what room they have rented, if they've paid. So all of these things actually fall under your responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you do not have amazing systems and processes, some of that's just going to fall through the cracks, and you cannot have that when you are helping people travel to another country.
Yeah.
So what has worked really well for us is having amazing systems and processes in place and following them every single time without fail. That works really great for us. My husband's very analytical. He's as you know, you actually know my husband.
Yeah.
And he's a big, SEO guy and analytics guy. And his degree was biology with a minor in chemistry. So he's very, process driven.
Yep.
And I will say that without him, there's no way I'd be able to do what I do, because he's so amazing at that. I'm like the face you see, and he does all the work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But seriously, having those systems has been extremely important, and I think to any business, but particularly to this business, having that consistency.
Well, it's true. Like if you're managing 50 people, to you, it's 50 people you have to manage. To that individual person, you're the only face they have and know, right? It's like, I need you to, so you can't mess that up. You got to be on.
You can't mess it up.
Yeah. It's interesting. So what would you say have been your biggest challenges as a business owner over the years, or even in the past year?
Let's see, challenges. It's super interesting is that I think one of the challenges is that people aren't aware that what I do even exists. Because people are thinking, I have a destination wedding. Oh, all my friends will just go on, like, I don't know, Travelocity or something, Expedia, and just book all their rooms.
Yeah.
And they start the process and realize that you actually really can't really do that with a destination wedding, or if you do, there's consequences to it. And so one of the biggest challenges is just simply helping people understand that they need to seek us out, which sounds odd because if someone doesn't know they need me, how do they find me?
That's right.
But getting more education out there and letting people know that booking your destination wedding group, your room block with a travel planner, one, does not cost you anything, and most of the time, or anything extra, because people are concerned that, oh, well, if I get a professional involved, it's going to cost me a lot more, and it typically does not. Yeah. And so just having that awareness that, oh, like someone like us exists that can handle all of the travel arrangements for our guests. And the other thing is that most people don't realize that a wedding group or a room block, again, is connected to concessions, or in essence freebies, special perks that you get. So some particular resorts will offer maybe free events depending upon how many rooms are booked within your room block, but only if they're booked within your room block. So if all your guests go and like book individually on Travelocity or Expedia or whatever's out there, you get none of those perks, so you lose them all. And that's such a bummer. And a lot of people aren't even aware of that. So I think those are some challenges, is helping people understand that there are big perks to booking with a travel planner, and particularly booking a wedding group, as opposed to just, hoping all your friends book their rooms and show up.
Well, it's interesting because I would never have thought of that too. And I would have thought, as a consumer, that it would be more expensive to use a travel person to do it versus just going on and, so I think you're right. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is probably educating people to make sure they understand, look, it doesn't cost you any more to do this. And by the way, you also get perks for doing it this way.
That's right. Well, and that's the thing, is that all the online travel agencies like Expedia have done a really good job of making people think that it's cheaper to book online. Yeah. So kudos to them and their great marketing. So that's like one of the challenges we have, is combating that non-reality of the situation. Yeah.
Well, I found that it's not always cheaper to do it that way, but anyways, that's just my own personal experience. You look at different places, and sometimes I've found it's just, less expensive and easier just to go directly to the location. Like if we've traveled for personal vacation, like you can go onto some of these sites and you're looking for stuff and you realize, okay, well, it's this. And then I don't know why I discovered one day, like if you just go to the site that they own, their site, it's actually easier, and the prices are the same or less, or they give you other stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, why am I doing it over here? Let me just go here and do it.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's good. That's great advice. So thinking about advice, as a business owner, you've been doing this for a while. So if you were to go back a couple of years and think and give yourself some advice, focus on this, Cheryl, focus on this, what would it be that you would give yourself?
One thing I didn't do from the beginning of our business was use social media as an education tool. So I think I would start sooner with that. And what I mean by that is, if you look at all the wedding vendors out there, everyone's posting pretty pictures. And if you go to our Instagram, you're going to see pretty pictures. But what we now more or less focus our social media on is educating couples. Shay and I tend to go to a lot of the resorts. We have a lot of personal relationships with the resorts and the different areas. So we're often on resort doing videos, doing Instagram lives, Instagram stories, posting things on Facebook.
Yep.
Like really educating people about what it's really like here. And, pretty pictures online do not always represent what is real life. Yeah. So really showing people what a resort looks like, and even on event days, showing people kind of behind the scenes. And we tend to, like you're interviewing me, I tend to interview a lot of local wedding vendors, nice. Resort contacts. And I think I would have focused more on that from the beginning, but you don't know what you don't know in the beginning.
That's right.
And so you're like, all right, everyone's posting lovely pictures, I should do that too. Mm-hmm. But I wish I would have focused more on what I'm doing now, which is educating people on the process.
Yeah, that's great, because you're right. I mean, a lot of times you just see the pretty pictures and the fluff, the,
Yes.
the unreality of things. But the thing I like about video is that you can get real, right? You can
Yeah.
show behind the scenes. You can show, you can photograph those, but you don't really get the whole picture with like video. Video gives you
really
the
don't.
opportunity to really like, get into the nitty gritty of it and really kind of like get into it. I love it. That's why I love these interviews, is because you can talk about these things, and the plan and the goal here is really to educate people,
Yeah.
educate consumers that are getting married. Here's some of the stuff that people that work in the business go through to make sure you have a great event. As a business owner, these are the things that I'm going through as a business owner. So don't feel bad if you're going through them too. It's okay. We're all going through the
We're all
same
doing
thing.
what we can right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. Great advice. Last question. What's your best wedding story you have for me?
You asked me this earlier and I'm still trying to think on it.
Okay, it could be worse. I don't know.
It's hard to think of like the best wedding story because, Shay and I have been doing this for about 11 years now, and we have so many awesome stories about so many awesome couples and a lot of people that we're now friends with. And I think probably, I don't know, some of our best wedding stories end up being where we then are helping them with baby showers later and
Yeah.
family trips later. And so I think the best stories for us end in a further relationship with the couple, and almost like we're like an extension of, their friends and family now. And I always say I have like a little wedding hangover after the wedding. If you don't know what a wedding vendor hangover is, you've never been a wedding vendor. And
Yeah.
no, we're not drunk, but it feels like it.
Yeah.
The day after a wedding, it really feels like it. But then the day after an event is over, I always have a little bit of sadness. I'm like, oh, I used to talk to them every day. I used to reach out to them all the time. And then, so you have this like level of friendship you built over a year, and then like that, they're gone. And then you don't talk to them every day anymore. And it's such an odd feeling. So I think for us, like the best is when that continues, and when like, your friends on Facebook and you're following their lives and you see their babies be born. And that's what I love. I love to then have this relationship that continues on. So that's the best, I think, for me, is knowing that for a lot of the couples, like we've made friends, and I don't know, we'll have that connection for years to come.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought of it like that. Like it's like you build this friendship up and you're talking to them, often
Yep.
up to the day, like you guys are like, and then all of a sudden you're not talking anymore.
And they're gone.
I mean, for some people, and even for some customers, it's probably got to be almost like heartbreaking in a way, because you like lost your best
so
friend.
sad. It sounds silly, but you really, this is a relationship business, and working with someone through their wedding, you learn everything about them, all the things about their family, their dynamics, their relationships, good or bad.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're, talking with someone as they're crying, telling you about some issue that they're having with a family member. You're really learning a lot of personal things. And so you've built this, yes, professional world relationship, but an actual like friendship relationship, and then it's done.
Yeah. That's horrible. Yes.
I know, it's so sad.
Heartbreaking. Yes. Great. Cheryl, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. Have a great weekend. Be safe and healthy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text, 520-399-8580, or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.